Hey everybody, this is Maxine Taylor with another edition of Move into the Magic. And as those of you who are regulars in listening to my show, you know that I interview the true movers and shakers of this planet, the people who are working to elevate the entire planet. And my guest today is absolutely one of the many of you know, Marcia Schafer. She and I have been dear friends for years, and so you are actually going to be eavesdropping in on a conversation between two friends about Marcia's latest book, Spirconomics. You are going to want to get a copy of this book. I could not put it down. And the people who have previewed it agree. Marcia's going to tell us more about this. If you don't know Marcia Schafer yet, who I feel is one of the true visionaries of our time, Marcia's first award-winning book, Confessions of an Intergalactic Anthropologist, brought new information to questioning seekers by revealing her contact experiences with extraterrestrial life, which she has had since she's been a child. Now, Marcia goes a step further to expose a hidden agenda behind it all. Unique circumstances are presenting for us a brief window of time to build a peaceful worldwide society here on planet Earth. But first, we've got to create change, and as Marcia says, lots of it. By using smart strategies and gentle elements of mysticism to respin the human wheel of fortune, mankind can build the ultimate civilization. And this is what we all want. But first, the budding messengers of tomorrow, and I'm speaking to you all out there, the budding messengers of tomorrow have to crack the code that you carry within. Spirconomics fuses a free agent spirituality to the practical realities of economics to inspire and prod a special group, and you may be part of that special group, to better understand who they are and what they can accomplish. So it's not by accident that you are part of today's audience. Marcia holds a master's in business administration, a bachelor's degree in nursing, and she has undergraduate classes in anthropology. She's well-versed in science, medicine, and the world of business. And she uses her wisdom in these areas to drive home the implications of information that she has gained from her otherworldly encounters. And she will elaborate on that. She founded the inventive consulting firm Beyond Zebra to give aspiring leaders the skills they need to build a better future. Marcia provokes people to think at new levels and repositions them for a different tomorrow, one that is adapted to what is heading our way. I know you can't wait to hear Marcia Schafer. Marcia, welcome to Move Into the Magic, honey.
Thank you, Maxine, for that wonderful build-up. That was pretty good. I'm delighted to be here with you today.
Tell us, first of all, Spirconomics. What is it, and what made you? Now, I know this was a long time in the planning, but what made you finally get this book out now?
Well, you know, I'm going to answer that in a different way. I'm going to ask, before I tell you what Spirconomics fully is, I'm going to discuss why now.
Yes.
Because I've had this lifetime of extraterrestrial contact, as you're well aware, and those who are familiar with my background and my work. And what I didn't realize was that although it started from the moment I was in the crib, I thought it was always just separate, distinct incidents that I always walked away with something that I'd learned, and it made me a lot wiser, and it helped me to live my life. So I thought it was just this journey that I was on. But what I didn't realize until a few years ago, that all the separate events that I had, whether they were teachings about the universe, other civilizations, exposure to behaviors, the consciousness of mankind, the consciousness of other species. It was all designed to tie together at an ultimate point in time, which really blew my mind, because I go through, I mean, I'm no spring chicken, I go through generations of years thinking, oh, this was an interesting part of my life, and here's what I've learned, let me share it with people. Then to realize it was all going to be woven into a synthesis of events waiting for this particular point of time that we're in right now to culminate, so that I could bring forth this new work and help people see things differently. So what I learned, as I said, is that it was all a synthesized program, and it was teaching me about civilizations and how species can build advanced civilizations and learn to live in not only peaceful times, but situations where they, what I call, optimize their members of society and give everybody opportunities to be the best that they can be, and that the entire society is focused on that particular gain. Excuse me. So that was what launched Spirconomics, and I began to get these specific information over a period of 3 years about societies, about economies, about consciousness, the ways, hidden principles of the universe, and began to show how it all tied together in a way that I'd never seen before. And thus, that was what launched Spirconomics. Now, Spirconomics, the book, let me stop for saying, there's the book and there's going to be an online platform. Well, thank you, Max. The book was written to give everybody an equal footing, because I'm going to go further in an online platform with Spirconomics Online, which is about to open up. But the overall purpose of Spirconomics is to transfer the seat of power into the hands of those who will work during their lifetimes to uplift the state of mankind and put us on a positive trajectory towards the future. Because we're heading in a certain direction now, which no matter who you are or what you believe, people are a little bit worried, with good reason. But we can do things differently that will impact ourselves as a species, that will impact the planet, will impact our relationship to the universal cosmos and to whoever may be inhabiting it, but we have to act now. So there is a very small window of time, as you pointed out, for mankind to begin to get its act together and make it. People talk about a shift usually in a metaphysical manner. I talk about a shift in a real-time manner in terms of how we live our lives, how we express ourselves, and how we move forward, thinking not just of ourselves, but of the collective of which we are a part. So Spirconomics overall is a motivating philosophy, and it's designed to bring together a special group of people that are here, that actually were born to do a specific type of work that will help make this change. And it's many, many people spread throughout the world, all over the globe. They often feel different. They often feel a little different, disenfranchised from the general society that is looking at what pair of boots you have to buy this season, or who's got the most famous celebrity selfie up on the internet and twittering away. They're seekers. They're people who are looking at, geez, there's something more to life than this. And so there's this group of people that look at life outside the mainstream that feel a bit disenfranchised. Very large group. I've worked with people in over 45 countries over the past 5-10 years. I've actually been doing this for 20, but over the past 5-10, they've been coming out in droves. They're everywhere, but they want to connect, and they don't know how, and they don't know where everybody else is. So I'm developing a way for them to connect so that they can form a demographic, a significant demographic, and unite around a general sense of principles that are outlined in the book that basically share a special vision of what life should be in the future. Now, we've had enough of demagoguery, we've had enough of religious diversion. This isn't a cult. This isn't something that says you have to believe X, Y, and Z. It's a very loose core of ideology that points people in a certain direction where they can say, yeah, I believe it. Such as, for God's sakes, isn't it about time that mankind lives in peace and develops an advanced civilization? Also, when it comes to extraterrestrial reality, one of the basics of this particular group is we're not here trying to prove it or trying to make the masses understand. It's a given. Extraterrestrial reality at this point in your level of understanding is a given. And so then what does it mean? How do we create a world where we're ready to join a greater state of awareness that is out there and learn to live beyond the borders and confines of our planet? So there's several things like that. Another very important principle is that you cherish nature and the animal kingdom, and you realize that they are vital, critical, and divine partners in our life here. And therefore, they're valued, and that you step up to the plate as a role of protector of the environment. So there's a series of them that are in the book, but these are the types of loose ideology, core values that are in there. As I said, this isn't a cult. We've had enough of those. This isn't a religious ideology. We've had enough of those. This is basically a philosophy to police people together. The first part of the book is called Withdrawing from Our Current State of Affairs. It's called Our Currency. And if you notice, Spirconomics is a combination of spirituality and economics, because the planet is basically driven at this point by economics. It's really not driven by philosophy, by spirituality, by religion. It's really driven by economics throughout the globe. This is what rules us. There needs to be a bit of a shift with that. So Spirconomics is combining spirituality to economics because we have to attack the economic platform that drives the planet. So I'm bringing that up because you'll find there's a bunch of puns in the book all throughout that relate to that. And when I talk about our currency, currency, money, and our current state of affairs. So the currency, part one is about our currency and withdrawing from our current state of affairs. And what it does, it takes you on a journey to see how man's behavioral tendencies has brought him to the state where he's at now, how he's been able to be led in certain ways, how he's been able to be driven to participate in certain world events, how he's been driven to embrace certain ideology. And then it shows how there's two layers of people on the planet, historically, but now there's 3 layers. And I'm going to get back to that in a minute, but I want to jump for a second to part 2 of the book. Part 2 talks about our change, the need for change money, again. And part 2 is about what I call snatching back the future. So remember I said the purpose of this is to transfer the seat of power into those who will do something to improve the state of mankind. As I call, it's affectionately called suing for peace and overthrowing the rascals. Yeah. So part 2 is basically what I call a playbook, which after you've had the foundation in one of understanding man's behavioral tendencies, who incarnates here in different layers, why they behave the way they do, how they see the world differently, which accounts for a lot of the state of chaos and calamity on the planet today. Then you go into the part of, so what are some of the strategies for change? And that's what part 2 is about. And it points out 4 critical factors that are shaping our world today. It points out the 7 strategic areas that you want to target if you want to make change, that are all social pillars of society. Very easy to do. And we can make change within just a few quick generations. And it also talks about one of the most important things that was given to me, that is the underpinning of everything that Spirconomics leads to, from, I just affectionately call them the teachers from the other side, is that if we learn to live together in communities worldwide in a new way and start redesigning that with different principles of how we approach each other and how we deal with each other and how we value each other and how we relate and communicate to each other and strive for common outcomes, the world will change very rapidly. So I refer to these as eco-communities, that they have the potential to spring up around the globe in very small satellite hubs that will eventually lead out to different cultural influences that develop new types of societies that will bring us to a very advanced state very quickly. Okay, so that's the long-winded overview of the book. It is only about 160 pages. You can read it in under 2 hours. People are writing me and saying, "Oh my God, I went through this thing, and I started at 4, I was done at 6. When can I find out more?" So, and I did that deliberately because there's so much information, but we're at a different point in time. Nobody wants to read a Hemingway book anymore, and I didn't want to put it up as a YouTube video for 4 hours. So I wrote it and I smashed it all together in a very quick read because I want to go beyond that. We have to go much further than what the book presents very quickly. And this gives everybody an equal playing ground that we can then come into the Spirconomic community that I'll be opening up online, move full speed ahead. So that's the overview. And so I know folks, Max and I talked beforehand, and I'm going to focus a little bit on part 1 today for you, which talks about the reincarnation patterns here on Earth and the different spiritual demographics that populate us. But I'm going to take a sip of water for a minute, and Max, go ahead and ask me any questions you want.
Well, first of all, I drink as much water as you like, because I have to tell you again how what you're getting ready to share with us blew my mind. The way you wrote it, it is so easily understandable. I could see the different strata in society by these 3 groups that are glommed together according to their soul's characteristics. This is sheer genius. It's so simple to understand, and in view of the current political situations that we have all over the world, and I'm thinking, of course, in the United States, I can understand clearly. You can pinpoint people and where they're at, not to judge, but so that, as you said, you can identify with and find your own kind. That's what I've wanted. I've put it out to the multiverse. Send me my own kind. And sometimes if I'm not on the highest level that particular day, the kind they send me is getting ready to be returned. I want a refund on this. But the truth is, it's where I was at that moment, but that's a different story. Anyhow, will you share with us the 3 groups, that incarnate according to their soul's characteristics? This is genius.
Yes, absolutely. Before I do, though, I want to bring up something that I wrote about that's important to note, is that historically, throughout history, there were basically 2 groups on the planet. And if you're prone to reading spiritual books and esoteric lore, you'll see in the old texts they would refer to these 2 types of people. They were called the Enlightened seekers and the masses. And you can see them, and particularly if you read any of the books from 1800s or 1700s on up to the early 1930s, when there was a big spiritual movement at that time. The Enlightened were people who were basically very deeply involved in seeking higher principles, higher truths, and living a spiritual life. And the masses were everybody else. We're just trying to get by. Now, at this point in our planet, there's a spiritual stratification of 3 groups that are out there. And I'm going to start with the first group. Now, this category system is something that I offer to you as a potential belief system that you can use as a tool of understanding. You don't have to regard it as ultimate truth. You just have to see if you respond to it. The groups are based on when you reincarnate, that you have certain soul characteristics pertaining to you of where you're at on the spiritual evolutionary pathway, which means not that one's better than the other, but basically that you have different beliefs, priorities, and you behave differently based on those beliefs and priorities. So the first group are what I refer to as the spiritual demographic 1. I call them the enlightened luminaries. The L's affectionately. These are what you refer to as change pioneers. Now, these are people who are very dedicated to living the spiritual pathway, but they're in contemporary society for the most part. It means that when something happens to you, you self-reflect, you analyze, you think, holy cow, what was that all about? What was I supposed to learn from this? All experiences are revealed to you as teaching moments. You also tend to penetrate very deep into the nature of reality and be looking at consciousness and different layers of who we are, and always trying to pierce the veil between the everyday existence that we live and what is beyond, the great beyond. The other thing that enlightened luminaries have as a characteristic is on their evolutionary soul path, they basically have entered what I call the path of service. So they don't think just about themselves and all about me. They think about the greater repercussions of those around them. And it means you have to do a lot more self-work, and you have to be really willing to put your ego aside at times and take your share of responsibility for what goes on. So these are the revolutionary innovators. The people who feel that they belong in this group at this time are what I call the revolutionary innovators. They're the seed layers for the future. The next group is a very large group. Let me go back. The enlightened luminaries are a small group, but they're growing very fast. The next group, the spiritual demographic twos, are what I call the emerging humans. These are the change engagers. These are your everyday people. You know, you're trying to get the kids to soccer practice. You're listening to your boss with the size of a pea brain trying to tell you what to do. You're thinking, oh my God, you know, you're so busy with everyday life that you're so tired when you come home. You barely have any moments to meditate, self-reflect, think about things that can often lift you out of ordinary reality, take you across the great divide, and open up greater awareness. So you're just trying to get through life, and you're very busy, and it's basically what I call the spiritual middle class. You know, the way the middle class is in economic terms, that, you know, you're struggling, you're trying to get your home, trying to get your kids a good education, trying to get ahead and do the best you can. Most of these are very good people. But as I said, the trick is that they're socially conditioned, for one. They've been taught to believe a certain way because they came up through traditional religious backgrounds in any society, but they haven't stepped outside that yet. However, they're starting to question and think that, gee, maybe there's something more. They do tend to prefer more scientific explanations, more things along the terms of traditional education when looking for answers to the great questions of life. And I can relate to this because I'm one of them, you know, is that they want to know, you know, what has the research been on this? You know, what has science said? Because sometimes the great mystic divide gets a little bit of the far west in it, and it gets too far out for everyday people to be able to understand or relate to. And it's like, you know, it gets categorized into mental illness or things where it may not necessarily need to belong there. The other thing with the middle class, the change engagers, the emerging humans, is that because of the traditional background that they've had, and they've been socially conditioned and often come up through conventional religious backgrounds that they are still practicing, they are very much caught in the dichotomy between good and evil. Something has to be black or white. Something has to be good or evil. God or Satan. You know, they tend to classify things in that way, and because of that, they get very easily ensnared into the pathway of fear. They're taught to fear certain things because harm may come to them, and it keeps them from pursuing the greater divide too deeply. However, the critical factor about this second group, which is so important to all of us in the future of the world, is this is what I affectionately call, particularly in an election year here in the United States, the swing vote. This is the most important group on the planet right now. Many of them a large percentage of them are being impacted in a certain way where they're questioning, this can't be all there is. They're questioning the old world that they have grown up in and have known, and are looking at everything that's coming down the tunnel at them and saying, where do I fit? What does this all mean? And I don't know if the old ways work for me anymore. But they're not always ready to let go. Again, they are most dogged by fear. Where the first group has learned to deal with their fears, excuse me, and overcome them in many ways, the second group is still in the midst of that great challenge. Now, I'm going to stop for a second as I'm practicing mystic and say that one of the first things on the pathway that we have to learn is how to master fear, because it does keep us from exploring, and it keeps us victimized rather than mastered. So that is a major, major thing about this group, is that they're breaking out of the box and they're learning how to overcome their fears. And there's a lot of tools that need to be made available to them without judgment, without dogma, without cultish attachment, that they could learn to explore and use to venture forward to become more of a mystic traveler explorer. So that's the first two groups. You've got a major pioneer here who's willing to travel the mystic freeway, very comfortable in exploring all sorts of things, questions everything that happens, takes responsibility for themselves. You've got the everyday person who's getting the kids off where they need to be, getting to tend to the demands of their jobs, their homes, dealing with life. Then you have the third group. The third group is a group that is often held in judgment, and they're what I call elementary man, SD3, spiritual demographic 3. They're what I call the change resistors. These are people who tend to have about 5 or 6 different characteristics and how they view life. They have a strong sense of entitlement. They feel that they deserve things without question. They don't understand it all or reflect on what happens to them. This next one is very important. They also demand that others believe as they do. And there's no tolerance for variation, no tolerance whatsoever, that anybody who deviates outside the box of their beliefs and value system is wrong, evil, and in some cases must be destroyed. Now, the interesting personality thing about this particular group is that they are easily led. They're easily led by charismatic figures, by religious icons, by established cult groups. They're very, very vulnerable to having, or to, let me change it, to latching on to a set of beliefs, because the beliefs that they are given often convey to them that they are special, and that they are a chosen class, and that they have a special mission, and that they're better than everybody else. So there's a lot of psychological manipulation in some of the elements of this group. Now, this group is a very wide group. You have people who just believe, as I said, and are vulnerable. You have the very strong fundamentalists of every single type of religion that is out there. You know, whether it's Christian fundamentalist, Judaic fundamentalist, Islamic fundamentalist, Scientology which I'm going to call them a fundamentalist in a type, because it's a rigid type of dogma that says you have to believe this and there's no other truth. And when you believe this, you have salvation. That's the key within it. Unfortunately, also the mentally ill, sometimes they go in this, the really mentally ill who are disenfranchised go into this class. Now, what I'm going to say is one of the most important things I'm going to share with you to realize is that in the course of a lifetime, within these 3 distinctive classes, this is what's so unique about the humans. You can either spend many lifetimes before moving from one group to the other, or you can do it in an instantaneous moment. You are not necessarily pegged in a hole in one of these 3 systems where it's a caste system where you can't move up and down. This is what makes humans so wildly unique, is that somebody who is a SD3 could have something happen to them in a moment, and their entire consciousness and awareness change. They could catapult right up to a 1. A 1, who is somebody who is a spiritual explorer, could have something happen to them where they stride immediately over, close down, and enter into the 3 category. These are fluid categories. And someone once asked me, when I used to do my talks on extraterrestrial reality and all the details that I would provide to the audiences, they once asked me, why are humans looked at as so unique? And that was one of the things I tried to convey that had been given to me, is that we're so fluid, is that we have, first of all, a wide spectrum of variability within our species, from people who are the most spiritually evolved and people who are the most closed down, violent. I don't like the word evil. I don't really believe in evil per se, but violent, lost souls who do really heinous actions of terror against others. And that also, in that moment, man's consciousness can change and he can shift from one to the other. And so that is the thing I want to get about this system, this classification system, because while I'm offering it to people as an educational tool to look at the world through different eyes, I also know that people tend to glom onto certain things. You're an astrologer, so let me use that as an example. It's just like someone say, well, I'm an Aquarian, so I'm all this and nothing else, and closes down and doesn't realize there's this huge nuance of details and richness of aspects and ascendants and trines and squares, and if you can give the whole vocabulary, I don't know much about it.
You're doing great.
That creates a very rich educational purview into astrology. And so the same thing with this is just a very quick synopsis of a paradigm to get people to look at the world through spiritual stratification that happens with reincarnation. Now, we also have people who don't even believe in reincarnation, but again, this is not dogma. I am offering tidbits of what I have learned on my pathway throughout my historical journey to other people who feel that they might find some benefit from it. So the spiritual demographic system of looking at the world, though, as you put it earlier, provides a very intriguing way to see what's going on, particularly in this moment in time in the United States, where, well, we're filming right now and we're having this dialogue, there is an election going on. And as we all know, in any country, and particularly in ours, during election years, I almost wish I could dig a hole and disappear for a period of time until it's over. People get very stirred up during that, and you see all kinds of things happening. And this is one of those times when people are running down a very vocal freeway into their beliefs. So with their beliefs and expressing a very wide range of tolerance and intolerance. So, in the first book, in the first part of the book, again, I take you through the journey, which is more looking at our currency of how we got to the point where we're at, things about man, their behavior, the vulnerabilities that allow them to be easily led in what they're looking for, and then pop you in the end with, okay, here's what I'm leading up to, is this spiritual stratification system that's called spiritual demographics. And remember it, because when you do get to part 2, we're going to use it a lot when looking at the strategies to change the world, basically. So, there's there's a lot of information, but today I wanted to focus just on that particular part for people, which also helps them identify a little bit of why they may look at the world the way they do. Now, you said something interesting, Max, and this is where I want to go into dialogue in terms of, gosh, I just want to find my own kind. And this is what I've been hearing from people for so many years when I do my work at Beyond Zebra as a hybrid business and psychic consultant, where I blend it all together. People for years have said to me, I love everybody. I love the world, but I really want to find people that I can gallop with, that I can share my ideas, my views, my philosophies, that I can also discuss the unique business perspectives I'm taking, where I look at the world as a whole, and I look at the betterment for the world, and I look at humanity as a group, and how can we make it better. And, I don't want to have to couch everything with these long levels of explanation, as I often do in everyday life. And so I've met so many thousands of people over the years. I've been doing this for 20 years. Shouldn't tell that, but, over the years, who have really expressed that. Which brings me back to one of the elements of why this information was given to me and just shared with the world, is that people have to find each other now. We're talking about demographics, and that's what was explained to me when the information was given to me over the past 3 years, is that people have to connect. Mm-hmm. That for many millennia, people basically have been on an individual journey of perfecting themselves, becoming more aware of who they are, their relationship to the greater world, the greater principles, the greater cosmos, spirituality, whatever that means to each individual person. But now we've come, and getting back to reincarnation, we have reincarnated once more to do something different. And so this isn't about individual evolution. This is about group collaboration to spur species evolution. And we have to find each other to learn how to work and collaborate with each other to create bigger things, to change it around so it's a spiritually based economy. And again, when I say spiritual, I don't mean religious dogma. I mean, some of the fundamentals of looking at the betterment of all. So, this is about a shift in everything that we've been doing. Is it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us. And that's what the new paradigm is. It's about us. And us coming together and learning to make change. One of the things I mentioned, I wrote about this, you can have a single strand of thread that you have, which really doesn't do much or warm anyone. But you pull those threads together and you have a blanket, which provides a lot of warmth for many. And we're these single strands of beings of reality that now are coming together to become a blanket to help change the trajectory of the planet here on Earth. So I've been talking for a long time. So let me stop for a moment.
You're absolutely brilliant. I love what you have to say. I know that you're speaking to so many people in our audience, because I've been an astrologer for almost 50 years, and my life path has grown and evolved to the point that at my point in life, I am looking to serve and to give back, and I'm not alone. There are so many people who feel the way I do, both old and young, because we're looking to find each other, and as we find each other, our strength grows. I think the most frustrating part for so many people nowadays is, if I may use one more time, the political scenario here. For example, in the United States, which is not unique to us, we see this all over the world, where the masses are manipulated, their buttons are punched, and they respond on a primal level, truly primal. When violence comes into the picture, we're talking primal. And so the information that you have, I think, is vital right now. And
I provided it as, a tool for people, for those who do respond to it, who do feel it relates to them, that I think it can be a very vital tool of looking at life through a different filter. And that's the whole thing, is we have to change our filter if we want to change the future. Because we all levels of us have been led to see the world in a particular way. And we now have an opportunity to do things differently. But we have to work quickly, because this is an incredible opportunity window in time. If you look back historically, from what history tells us, there were other times when there were major Reformation periods or people leading movements where they tried to make change, but it never really happened. You can even look at the histories that are told to us from the one, what you call Jesus or Yeshua. You can look into the period of Egyptian history during the time of Akhenaten, who tried to move from pantheism, many gods, to monotheism, to one God. You can look at the Reformation eras of the late 1700s, and then some of the spiritual movements in the late 1800s. I could go, Walden Pond, on and on and on and on. And what was conveyed to me was that these have all been times when groups of people have come together to try to make this happen. Now, getting a little esoteric here, which I know everybody likes the good stuff, which is esoteric stuff, is that what was conveyed to me is that right now, incarnated on this planet is a very special contingency. That this is a contingency of souls that has been working for some time together here and on other planets, learning about the skills of turnaround strategies. And that the turnaround strategy that we're doing here on this planet is almost like the equivalent of our graduation. That we have to prove that we can do it, that we can turn a condition, a status on a planet to one that is more evolved and really drop kick the evolutionary pathway of a species. And that's what we have incarnated here for. So, there's where you get your little esoteric, nugget. I've been trying to, keep it as, even though this is esoteric stuff, keeping it as relatable as possible. This is what was conveyed to me. And that, again, going back to what I said before, the key is that in order to make it happen is we have to come together. We have to collaborate. And in doing so, we'll be serving ourselves, because we have to put aside every element of judgment that we so often have when we meet people, and just accept them, that soul level, that heart level that we have, instead of just, this person is, a negative, this person is a positive. We have to come at an even playing field and realize we are all contributing here. And there's always people that you connect to deeper and more strongly to along the pathway. But we have to look at everybody with loving eyes, really, what are soul eyes. When a person comes to me, when I do my spiritual work, it's like I go through this metaphoric transformation and I feel nothing but love and concern for them. Good God, why can't I keep that during my everyday life when I'm out there?
Because you're a person, you're a human being.
I know, and I think, God, the way that what I feel towards them and the deep level of caring and the investment I put into them. But then I go to the grocery store and I go, come on already.
Well, you know what I always say, Marcia? If I were perfect, I wouldn't be down here with the rest of you.
Yeah, exactly. The same thing. And I gotta tell you, I am very imperfect, but I have a lot of love in my heart. So,
and we know that. And that's the truth. I want to ask you if you, in the time that we have left, and we have enough time for you to touch on a subject that ties in with what we've just been talking about, because there are four main areas that you outline in the introduction to your book that are such grabbers. And this second one, if you would just give us a little bit, because I don't want people to think that the book is only about the three groups.
No, that's just part, that's just one aspect of the first part. It's like two books in one that are written.
Well, so the second point that I would love you to just touch on are the four major trending forces that are, as you put it so beautifully, quietly and surreptitiously shaping our future.
Well, that is a big one for us to do in just a few minutes that we have left. So let me just...
Well, good, I verbalized it, so now you can talk about anything you want.
I'm trying to think of which one that I want to talk about. Okay, let me talk about technology.
Great.
Right? let me just pretty quick if I can. One of the things that has been going on is that we as a species are socially conditioned from an evolutionary standpoint over generations. Now, to backtrack for a second, what I'm talking about all of us doing is going to take generations, but we have to start now. And what's happened to us with the advent of technology into humanity's pathway has been pulsed in over the past few generations. But people haven't realized what has happened. They've been so enamored of how easy and fun it has made life that they haven't looked at where we're really going or the implications behind it. Now, in the beginning, we had technology given to us that made our lives a little easier. We had refrigerators, we had stoves and television, and and things that began to change our lives a little bit. The television was an interesting revolution because it was one of the first things that allowed mankind to develop a relationship with technology. That's the key word. And I'll be talking a lot more about this in the online forum when I bring Spirconomics.com online. We'll go into very deeply into this. The aspect of man being cultivated to develop relationships with artificial technology. So that was the very first one. Then you see we had the magic influence of what was once seen only in a 1960s sci-fi show called Star Trek. The old beam me up Scotty. Man was given a portable telephone. Oh my God. And then, as computers came on board, he began to develop a relationship with his computer. Then he developed a relationship with the computer squished down into the telephone. And so what is happening is, while we're saying, Siri, book me reservations at XYZ, and we're playing with Twitter, and we're making friends on Facebook, we aren't realizing how deeply our human behavioral patterns are being altered. In many ways. One, as I pointed on, they're being altered and are being cultivated to develop relationships with artificial technology. So we're not giving any thought to what it means or what the future will bring us. We've been slowly, surreptitiously cultivated to become dependent on it and develop a relationship with it, which was kind of sneaky. If you think about it, kind of sneaky. Because what we're heading up to, and it's actually already here, it's just not quite out in everyday reality yet, is some very advanced artificial intelligence, robotics, things that will change our life immensely. Now, as I point out in the book, though, there's an upside to all of the manipulation in each of the 4 areas. And the upside on this one is that we bring artificial technology in as deeply as we have been hitting down that road, then we're going to go deeper into questioning consciousness and what it means to be alive, what it means to be human, and it will have a jump start, not just to the hands of the people who are ardent spiritualists who pursue this, but into the other groups too. So that's going to be the upstart of what is happening. And I know that we're getting close to the end here. So, one of the very 4 major trends that we have to realize and look at with different eyes. This is about opening our eyes and having a new filter to see an understanding between the relationships of what is happening. Is one of those pathways is artificial intelligence. And you guys can read the book and find out more about the other 3 that are there. And I gave a lot of detail about that. But we have to realize that man is being led down a pathway. Instead of the pathway he needs to be led is towards emancipated thinking and developing wisdom skills. That's the priority for humanity, and bringing ourselves to a point where we live in advanced, peaceful civilizations. So that's just a snippet of a look at one aspect. There's 4 of them that are woven together that you need to be able to know and see the relationships between. But then I don't just tell you what they are. I go into, here's strategy to change the future, and give you 7 key critical areas to target in society of where you want to be entrepreneurial and make a difference for the future. So Spirconomics is my, the culmination of my lifetime of extraterrestrial contact, spiritual experiences, across the mystic divide, and then bringing it down into how do we have a way to change a world that is built around a dependence on economics and money and material wealth, driving a population that needs to be emancipated, that needs to be further driven along the road of evolution, and to learn how to develop advanced societies.
Well, as you know, the idea of taking full and complete responsibility for being the creator of our lives and thinking independently is, being able to think, period, is the flag that I wave. Because I see so many people who are lemmings. They are, and we are all influenced by the movies that we see, the news, etc.
Very much so.
I see a polarization occurring in our world across the board between those who really do want to create peace and love and those who are out to create war and death. And that middle ground, the swing vote, is very, very obvious. The power that they have is palpable. We do have time for you, if you would like, to talk briefly about perhaps an idea that you have seen or information you've been given on how those who do not have a copy of my book, Move Into the Magic, how those can begin to start thinking for themselves and express independent thought. Those people who are coming from independent thought are already doing it. But the person in the second group who is interested, what steps can they take besides buying your book, of course?
They don't have to buy my book, but go ahead. I think it's something that we don't have to even bring it down to the spiritual demographics, that everybody can do this. And the most important thing to beginning to disengage from what has been out there that has cultivated us to act, respond, and behave in a certain way is to not be reactive, to stop and disengage yourself from the moment and think and say, is there more than there appears to be on the surface of what is going on? So the most important thing is to remember, this is something that I learned from those who came to visit me over the years. Things are not always as they seem. Except this wasn't given to me as a simple just dictum of, oh, learn this. I had to go through a series of experiences, potent experiences, to help me come to that understanding. But the most important thing in life is that things are not always as they seem. And that just seems to never, never end. But where it has so much power for us is to look at it in everyday life and to look at who might really be pulling the strings or what may be behind this from a bigger picture, to look at relationships behind things. And really, to activate ourselves, one of the most important things is to find times for silence. This is something else that I did point out in the book, in a relationship that has been cultivated with artificial technology and the advancing rate of technology that we face, is that we don't have time to think anymore. We are locked into our cell phones. Mm-hmm. We are locked into our computers. We are locked into Facebook, or we're locked into the TV. There is no time to speak. So if there is this dimension with many types of consciousness who have a type of wisdom that we can benefit from, how are they going to get that wisdom to us if we won't even listen, take the time to hear? So one, things are not as they seem, and two, disengage from all the activity around you for some moments in time and listen. Usually it's just our higher selves, a more wiser, advanced form of ourselves that just wants to say, hello, stop, wait, think. And this is really how you begin to even develop your psychic abilities, is by doing this. So stop, disengage for a moment, take some time, no matter what. You must make that priority. I really feel that that's important. But in terms of everyday life, don't take everything at face value. And don't allow people to drive you to a certain positioning so that they achieve their agenda, not yours.
Oh, that's beautiful. Marcia, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, because I know that you're going to be doing much more than your book.
Yeah. The best way to get in touch with me is beyondzebra.com, info@beyondzebra.com, and there's a contact form on there. And just put something on the header related to Spirconomics if that's your particular interest. Right now, I have a private waiting list for the forum to open up. I'm hoping it'll be open up in the next couple of weeks, and this is where I'll be doing much more advanced teaching. Because candidly, Max, you revealed to the audience that we have a friendship and we've known each other for a while and enjoy each other. And one of the things Max knows about me is, while I'm happy to go out and share information, I don't really love being out in the public. So I've created like my own little house online where you will buy a subscription to get in, and I will take you much deeper and much further than the book does. But more importantly, there is a directory, a roster of everybody inside, and you have an internal communication method to communicate, let people know about yourself, know which one of the 7 areas of reform, which we didn't talk about, but is part of the strategy for change that you're most interested in. And I'm going to be taking people in groups and clusters and also large everybody's down a very advanced highway.
Marcia, thank you so much for taking time to be my guest today. I have loved having you. The book, Spirconomics, it's incredible. It's an easy read. It's a powerful read. It's a fast read. And that means you will whip through it and your mind will be open even more in just a couple of hours. How to snatch back the future. I thank my dear friend Marcia Schafer for being my guest today.
Enjoyed being here with you.
Marcia, I want you to come back and let's do some more. And I hope the rest of you will join me next week when, once again, we move into the magic with another mover and shaker. Until then, this is Maxine Taylor reminding you that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. See you real soon.